Clara Reyes never imagined that sending a desperate text message at 2:47 a.m. would change her life forever. What started as a last-ditch attempt to save her dying mother would lead her into a world she never knew existed, one where powerful men make decisions that reshape entire lives in a single night. But when Clara opened her eyes in that pristine medical suite, surrounded by 3 doctors she'd never seen before, she realized that some favors come with a price that money can't measure. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Clara Reyes sat hunched in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside her mother's bed. The antiseptic smell had long since stopped bothering her after 3 weeks of living in this sterile purgatory. It had become as familiar as her own breath. Her mother, Elena Reyes, lay motionless beneath the thin hospital blanket, her once vibrant face now gaunt and pale, connected to a maze of tubes and wires that seemed to multiply each day. Clara's fingers trembled as she clutched the crumpled medical bills in her lap. The numbers blurred together through her exhausted tears. $47,000 for the emergency surgery, $23,000 for the ICU stay, $8,500 for medications that weren't covered by their basic insurance plan. Each figure felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs and the hope from her heart. At 24, Clara had never felt so helpless. She'd dropped out of community college 2 years ago when her mother's health started declining, taking a job at Murphy's Diner on the east side of town to make ends meet. The work was honest but brutal, 12-hour shifts on her feet, dealing with demanding customers for tips that barely covered their rent in the rundown apartment complex on Maple Street. Even with her mother's part-time job at the local grocery store, they'd been living paycheck to paycheck, with no safety net for catastrophes like this. The doctors had been clear about Elena's condition. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, they'd said, using words like aggressive and metastasized that sounded like death sentences wrapped in medical terminology. There was an experimental treatment available, Dr. Harrison had explained, but it wasn't covered by insurance. The cost would be astronomical, close to $200,000 for the full course of treatment. Without it, Elena had maybe 6 weeks left. Clara had spent every waking moment of the past 3 weeks trying to find a solution. She'd applied for medical loans and been rejected due to insufficient credit history. She'd started a crowdfunding campaign that had raised a heartbreaking $2,400 from friends, neighbors, and strangers who were struggling themselves. She'd even swallowed her pride and reached out to distant relatives, most of whom had their own financial troubles or simply stopped responding to her calls. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, desperation had driven her to a place she'd never imagined going. Earlier that evening, while scrolling through social media on her phone during a brief break from her mother's bedside, Clara had stumbled across an article about Marcus Blackwood, the billionaire CEO of Blackwood Industries. The article featured a photo of him at some charity gala, tall, imposing, with steel-gray eyes and an expression that suggested he was accustomed to getting exactly what he wanted. The story detailed his company's latest acquisition, a pharmaceutical company that specialized in cancer research, and mentioned his personal phone number being leaked online by a disgruntled former employee. Clara had stared at that phone number for hours, her thumb hovering over the screen. What were the chances that a man worth billions would even see a text from a complete stranger? What were the chances he'd care about one more sob story in a world full of them? But as she watched her mother's labored breathing and listened to the steady beep of the heart monitor, Clara realized she was out of options. At 2:47 a.m., with her hands shaking and her heart pounding, she'd typed out a message that felt like throwing a bottle into an ocean of indifference. Mr. Blackwood, my name is Clara Reyes. I know you don't know me and probably get messages like this all the time, but I'm desperate. My mother Elena is dying of pancreatic cancer at St. Mary's Hospital. The doctors say there's an experimental treatment that could save her, but insurance won't cover it, and I can't afford the $200,000 cost. I work at Murphy's Diner and make $8.50 an hour. I've tried everything else. I don't know why I'm texting you, except that I read your company bought a cancer research facility, and maybe, just maybe, you might understand what it's like to watch someone you love slip away. If there's any way you could help, I would spend the rest of my life paying you back. My mother is all I have left in this world, please. She'd hit send before she could second-guess herself, then immediately regretted it. What kind of person bothers a billionaire at 3 a.m. with their problems? What if he thought she was some kind of scammer or lunatic? Clara had powered off her phone and buried her face in her hands, feeling more foolish than hopeful. The night had passed in a blur of fitful dozing and worried watching. Elena's condition seemed to worsen by the hour, her breathing more shallow, her skin taking on grayish pallor that made Clara's stomach clench with fear. By morning, the nurses were speaking in hushed tones, and Dr. Harrison was using phrases like making her comfortable that Clara refused to accept. It was just after 8 a.m. when Clara finally turned her phone back on, expecting nothing but the usual notifications and maybe a few concerned messages from her friend Jessica at the diner. Instead, she found a single text from an unknown number that made her heart stop. "Miss Reyes, I received your message. A car will pick you up at St. Mary's in 1 hour. Bring identification and any medical records you have for your mother. M. Blackwood." Clara read the message 3 times before it sank in. Marcus Blackwood had not only seen her desperate text but was responding to it. She looked around the hospital room as if expecting hidden cameras or someone to jump out and tell her it was all a cruel joke. But her phone showed the message clearly, timestamped just 10 minutes ago. Her mind raced with questions and possibilities. What did this mean? Was he actually going to help, or was this some kind of test? Clara had heard stories about billionaires and their eccentric behavior, their tendency to treat regular people like chess pieces in games only they understood. But what choice did she have? Elena was dying, and this might be the miracle Clara had been praying for. The next hour passed in a whirlwind of activity. Clara gathered Elena's medical files, explained to the nurses that she'd be stepping out for a few hours, and tried to make herself presentable despite having slept in a hospital chair for weeks. She'd changed into her least wrinkled clothes, a simple black dress she'd brought for what she'd feared might be her mother's funeral, and attempted to tame her unruly dark hair. At exactly 9 a.m., a sleek black sedan pulled up to the hospital's main entrance. The driver, a middle-aged man in a crisp suit, rolled down the window and called out, "Clara Reyes." Clara nodded, still half convinced this was some kind of elaborate mistake. The driver got out and opened the rear door for her with professional courtesy that felt surreal after weeks of institutional indifference. "Mr. Blackwood is waiting for you at his office," the driver explained as they pulled away from the hospital. "Traffic permitting, we should arrive in about 30 minutes. The ride through the city gave Clara time to process what was happening. She'd never been in a car this expensive. The leather seats were softer than her bed at home, and the ride was so smooth she could barely feel the road beneath them. Through the tinted windows, she watched familiar streets pass by, but everything felt different now, like she was seeing her city through someone else's eyes. Blackwood Industries occupied a gleaming 40-story tower in the heart of downtown, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a monument to corporate power. Clara had seen the building countless times during her bus rides to work, but she'd never imagined she'd actually step inside it. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and steel, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up forever and artwork that probably cost more than Clara would make in a lifetime. The elevator ride to the 38th floor was silent except for the soft hum of machinery and Clara's thundering heartbeat. She clutched Elena's medical files against her chest like a shield, trying to prepare herself for whatever was about to happen. The story she'd heard about Marcus Blackwood painted him as brilliant but ruthless, a man who'd built his empire by making hard decisions that others couldn't stomach. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that looked like something from a luxury hotel. A woman in her 50s with perfectly styled gray hair and a tailored suit looked up from her desk with a smile that seemed genuine despite the formal setting. "Miss Reyes?" "I'm Margaret Walsh, Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office." She gestured toward a set of heavy wooden doors that looked like they belonged in a medieval castle. Clara's legs felt unsteady as she approached those doors, but before she could knock, they swung open to reveal the man himself. Marcus Blackwood was taller than she'd expected, probably 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled out his expensive charcoal suit. His hair was dark with distinguished silver at the temples, and those steel-gray eyes she'd seen in photographs seemed to look right through her. "Miss Reyes," he said, his voice deep and measured. "Please come in." His office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The furniture was all dark wood and leather, giving the space a masculine, old-world feel despite the modern technology discreetly integrated throughout. Awards and photographs lined the walls, pictures of Blackwood with presidents, celebrities, and other powerful figures that Clara recognized from news stories. "Thank you for seeing me," Clara managed, her voice sounding small in the vast space. "I can't believe you actually responded to my text." Blackwood moved behind his massive desk, but didn't sit down. Instead, he studied her with an intensity that made Clara feel like he was cataloging every detail of her appearance, her posture, her nervous energy. "I get thousands of requests for help every month," he said finally. "Most of them end up filtered out by my staff before they reach me. Yours was different." "Different how?" "Most people who ask for money lead with flattery or try to manipulate me with guilt. You simply told me the truth about your situation and asked for help. That's unusual." Clara shifted the medical files in her arms, unsure how to respond. "I don't really know how to ask billionaires for favors. I've never been in this situation before." Something that might have been amusing flickered across Blackwood's features. "No, I imagine you haven't. Tell me about your mother's condition." For the next 20 minutes, Clara explained Elena's diagnosis, the failed treatments, and the experimental therapy that represented their last hope. Blackwood listened without interruption, occasionally asking precise questions that demonstrated he understood the medical complexities better than Clara had expected. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "The treatment your mother needs," he said when she finished. "It's being developed by Meridian Therapeutics, a company I acquired 6 months ago. I'm familiar with the research." Clara's heart leaped. "Does that mean you can help her get the treatment?" "It means I can do better than that." Blackwood moved to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked out over the city. "Meridian has been looking for suitable candidates for their next clinical trial. If your mother qualifies, she could receive the treatment at no cost." "Are you serious?" Clara felt tears spring to her eyes. "She could actually get the treatment?" "Possibly. But there are conditions." Clara's elation dimmed slightly. Of course there were conditions. Men like Marcus Blackwood didn't give away $200,000 treatments out of the goodness of their hearts. "What kind of conditions?" Blackwood turned back to face her, his expression unreadable. "The clinical trial requires participants to receive treatment at a private medical facility. Your mother would need to be transferred there today, and she'd remain there for the duration of her treatment, potentially several months." "That's fine," Clara said quickly. "Whatever she needs." "The facility is exclusive. Very few people know of its existence, and those who do are bound by strict confidentiality agreements." If your mother participates in this trial, neither of you can discuss her treatment with anyone, not friends, not other family members, not even other medical professionals. Clara frowned. Why all the secrecy? The treatment involves proprietary technology that my company has invested billions in developing. Corporate espionage is a very real threat in the pharmaceutical industry. Additionally, the facility serves clients who value their privacy above all else. It sounded strange, but Clara was hardly in a position to negotiate. What else? You'll need to accompany your mother to the facility. The trial protocol requires a family member to be present throughout treatment to monitor for psychological side effects and assist with daily care. I'd want to be with her anyway, Clara said. But what about my job? I can't afford to lose. That won't be a concern. Participants' families receive a stipend to cover living expenses during treatment. You'll also have access to educational resources if you choose to continue your studies. Clara's head was spinning. It sounded too good to be true. Free treatment, paid leave, even educational opportunities. But the way Blackwood was presenting it, with careful, measured words, made her wonder what he wasn't telling her. Mr. Blackwood, she said slowly, why are you doing this? You don't know me or my mother. What do you get out of helping us? For the first time since she'd entered his office, Blackwood's carefully controlled expression shifted slightly. Something flickered in his eyes, pain, maybe, or regret. I lost someone to cancer once, he said quietly. Someone who might have lived if experimental treatments had been available then. I swore that when I had the resources to help others in similar situations, I would. It was the first thing he'd said that sounded entirely human, and Clara felt her wariness begin to ease. I'm sorry for your loss. The question now, Blackwood continued, his businesslike demeanor returning, is whether you're willing to accept the terms I've outlined. I need an answer today. The trial begins tomorrow, and if your mother is going to participate, she needs to be transferred to the facility tonight. Clara's mind raced. Everything was happening so fast, but what choice did she have? Elena was dying, and this might be her only chance at survival. What happens if I say yes? I'll have my medical team review your mother's files immediately. If she's accepted into the trial, an ambulance will transfer her to the facility this evening. You'll accompany her and remain there for the duration of treatment. And if I say no? Blackwood's expression was neutral, but Clara caught something cold in his eyes. Then you return to the hospital, and nature takes its course. It wasn't really a choice at all. Clara took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, I accept your terms. Excellent. Blackwood pressed a button on his desk, and Margaret Walsh appeared in the doorway almost instantly. Margaret, please have Dr. Chun review the medical files Miss Reyes brought. If Mrs. Reyes qualifies for the Meridian trial, initiate transfer protocols immediately. Right away, sir, Margaret said, taking the files from Clara's hands with gentle efficiency. As Margaret left the office, Blackwood returned his attention to Clara. There's one more thing we need to discuss. Before your mother can be transferred, you'll need to sign several documents: medical consent forms, confidentiality agreements, and liability waivers. Liability waivers? Experimental treatments carry inherent risks, Miss Reyes. While the early results have been promising, there are no guarantees. You need to understand that fully before proceeding. Clara nodded, though fear was beginning to creep in around the edges of her relief. I understand. Good. Margaret will prepare the paperwork while Dr. Chun reviews your mother's case. In the meantime, I suggest you return to the hospital and prepare your mother for transfer. Pack light. Everything you need will be provided at the facility. Mr. Blackwood, Clara said as she stood to leave, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, he replied, his tone carrying a weight she didn't fully understand. Wait until you see what you've agreed to. The ride back to St. Mary's Hospital felt like traveling between two different worlds. Clara pressed her face against the sedan's tinted window, watching the gleaming corporate towers give way to the familiar rundown neighborhoods of her everyday life. The contrast was jarring. One moment she'd been in Marcus Blackwood's marble and mahogany kingdom, and now she was returning to the harsh fluorescent reality of her mother's hospital room. Elena was awake when Clara arrived, her eyes tracking movement despite the heavy medication coursing through her system. She managed a weak smile as Clara settled into the bedside chair that had become her second home. "Where did you go, Mia?" Elena whispered, her voice barely audible above the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. Clara had rehearsed this conversation during the car ride. But now, looking into her mother's trusting eyes, the words stuck in her throat. How could she explain that she'd made a deal with a billionaire stranger? How could she admit that she'd signed away their freedom for the chance at Elena's survival? "I found us some help, Mom," Clara said finally, taking Elena's frail hand in both of hers. "There's an experimental treatment available, a clinical trial that could save your life." Elena's eyes sharpened despite her weakness. "Clinical trial? Clara, those things are dangerous and expensive. We can't afford. It's free, Mom, completely free. But there are some conditions." Clara explained about the private facility, the secrecy requirements, and the need for both of them to stay there during treatment. She left out the more unsettling aspects of her conversation with Blackwood, focusing instead on the hope this represented. Elena studied her daughter's face with the intuition that only comes from 24 years of unconditional love. "What aren't you telling me?" Before Clara could answer, Dr. Harrison entered the room, carrying a thick folder and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. "Mrs. Reyes, Miss Reyes, I have some remarkable news. I've just received a call from Dr. Victoria Chun at Meridian Therapeutics. Your mother has been accepted into their clinical trial for the new pancreatic cancer treatment." Elena looked confused. "I don't understand. I never applied for any trial." Dr. Harrison glanced between mother and daughter. "The application was submitted this morning, along with all of your medical records. Dr. Chun has reviewed your case personally and believes you're an ideal candidate. This is extraordinary, Mrs. Reyes. The treatment they're offering represents the cutting edge of cancer therapy. Patients in their preliminary studies have shown remarkable improvement." "What exactly does this treatment involve?" Elena asked, though Clara could see the spark of hope beginning to kindle in her mother's tired eyes. "The specifics are proprietary, but I can tell you it involves targeted cellular therapy combined with advanced immunological support. The success rates in early trials have been unprecedented." Dr. Harrison pulled out a chair and sat down, his manner shifting from professional to personal. "Elena, I've been treating cancer patients for 15 years. I've never seen anything like this. If it were my mother, I wouldn't hesitate." Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. Having Dr. Harrison's endorsement made her decision feel less reckless, more medically sound. "When would this treatment begin?" Elena asked. "Tonight," Dr. Harrison replied. "A specialized medical transport team will transfer you to their facility this evening. The treatment protocol requires immediate initiation to be most effective." Elena turned to Clara, searching her daughter's face. "And you'll come with me?" "Every step of the way," Clara promised, squeezing her mother's hand. Next few hours passed in a blur of preparations and paperwork. Margaret Walsh arrived at the hospital with a leather briefcase full of documents that Clara signed without fully reading confidentiality agreements, medical consent forms, and several papers with so much legal jargon they might as well have been written in a foreign language. Margaret's demeanor was professional but kind, patiently explaining each document's basic purpose without divulging any details about the facility itself. "You'll find everything you need at the treatment center," Margaret assured Clara as she witnessed the final signature. "Dr. Chun and her team are among the finest medical professionals in the world. Your mother will receive exceptional care." As the sun began to set outside Elena's hospital window, Clara packed their few belongings into a small suitcase. It felt strange to be packing for a journey to an unknown destination, not knowing how long they'd be gone or what they'd find when they arrived. At exactly 8 p.m., two men in dark suits arrived with a wheelchair and a gurney. They moved with military precision, transferring Elena from her hospital bed to the gurney with practiced efficiency. Clara had expected an ambulance, but instead, they were led to a sleek black van with tinted windows and medical equipment that looked far more advanced than anything she'd seen at St. Mary's. "Where exactly are we going?" Clara asked one of the men as they secured Elena's gurney inside the van. "The Westfield Medical Research Center," he replied curtly. About an hour outside the city. Clara had never heard of any medical facility called Westfield, but she climbed in the van beside her mother's gurney and tried to project calm confidence. Elena's eyes were closed, whether from exhaustion or medication, Clara couldn't tell. But her breathing seemed steadier than it had in days. The drive took them through increasingly rural areas as the city lights faded behind them. Clara watched the landscape changed from suburban developments to rolling hills dotted with expensive homes, hidden behind tall gates and mature trees. This was old money territory, where families with generational wealth had built private compounds away from the noise and chaos of urban life. When they finally turned off the main road, it was onto a private drive marked only by a small discreet sign reading Westfield Center Private Property. The drive wound through dense woods for nearly 2 miles before emerging into a clearing that took Clara's breath away. The Westfield Medical Research Center looked nothing like any hospital Clara had ever seen. The main building was a stunning blend of modern architecture and natural materials, glass, steel, and stone that seemed to grow organically from the landscape around it. The structure sprawled across several acres with multiple wings connected by covered walkways and surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens. Soft lighting illuminated the grounds, creating an atmosphere more reminiscent of a luxury resort than a medical facility. "My God," Elena whispered, her eyes wide as she took in their surroundings. "This place must have cost a fortune to build." The van pulled up to what appeared to be a private entrance, where a woman in scrubs was waiting with a team of medical personnel. As Clara stepped out of the van, she was struck by the quality of everything around her, from the perfectly maintained landscaping to the expensive materials used in the building's construction. This wasn't just a medical facility. It was a statement about the kind of resources Marcus Blackwood commanded. "Mrs. Reyes, I'm Dr. Victoria Chun," the woman in scrubs said as Elena was transferred to a new gurney. Dr. Chun appeared to be in her early 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Despite the late hour, she looked alert and energetic. "I'll be overseeing your treatment personally." "Dr. Chun," Elena said weakly, "I can't thank you enough for accepting me into your program." "The thanks should go to Mr. Blackwood," Dr. Chun replied, her tone carrying a slight edge that Clara couldn't quite interpret. "He takes a very personal interest in our work here." As they moved Elena through the facility's corridors, Clara was amazed by what she saw. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior high ceilings, natural light despite the evening hour, and artwork that belonged in museums. The medical equipment visible in various rooms looked like it belonged in science fiction movies, rather than real hospitals. "This place is incredible," Clara said to Dr. Chun as they walked. "How long has it been operating?" "About 2 years," Dr. Chun replied. "We're a very exclusive facility. We typically treat only a dozen patients at a time, which allows us to provide extremely personalized care." They arrived at Elena's room, which looked more like a suite at a 5-star hotel than a hospital room. The space was large and airy, with a comfortable-looking bed, seating area, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the moonlit gardens. Medical equipment was discreetly integrated into the room's design, present but not overwhelming. "This is beautiful," Alina said as she was helped into the bed. "But I have to ask, how much is all this costing?" Clara said the treatment was free, but this facility. "Your treatment is completely funded by Blackwood Industries," Dr. Chun assured her. "Mr. Blackwood believes that healing should take place in an environment that nurtures both body and spirit." As Dr. Chun and her team got Alina settled, Clara was shown to an adjoining room that was equally luxurious. It had its own bathroom, a sitting area, and a bed that looked infinitely more comfortable than the hospital chair she'd been sleeping in for weeks. "I'll leave you both to rest," Dr. Chun said after completing Alina's initial examination. "We'll begin the treatment protocol first thing in the morning. Mrs. Reyes, I want you to get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow will be ... intensive." After Dr. Chun left, Clara sat on the edge of Elena's bed, both of them trying to process their new surroundings. "This doesn't feel real," Elena said softly. 24 hours ago, I was dying in a county hospital. Now I'm in what looks like a palace, about to receive treatment that could save my life. How did this happen so fast?" Clara had been wondering the same thing. The speed with which everything had been arranged, the obvious expense of the facility, the level of luxury that seemed excessive even for wealthy patients, it all felt surreal. "Mr. Blackwood must be a very generous man," Elena continued, "or a very guilty one." "What do you mean?" Elena's eyes met her daughter's. "In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Powerful men don't give away millions of dollars without expecting something in return." Before Clara could respond, there was a soft knock on the door. A young woman in scrubs entered carrying a tray with 2 cups of tea and what appeared to be medication for Elena. "Good evening, I'm Sarah, one of the night nurses," she said with a warm smile. "Dr. Chun asked me to bring you some chamomile tea to help you sleep, and Mrs. Reyes, here are your evening medications." Elena took the pills without question, but Clara noticed they were different from the ones she'd been taking at St. Mary's. When she asked about this, Sarah explained that Dr. Chun had adjusted Elena's medication regimen to prepare her system for the new treatment. "The tea smells wonderful," Elena said after taking her medication. "I haven't had good tea in months." Clara sipped her own tea, surprised by how relaxing it was after the stress of the day. The warm liquid seemed to melt the tension from her shoulders, and for the first time in weeks, she felt genuinely hopeful about her mother's chances. "You should both get some rest," Sarah said, checking Elena's vital signs one final time. "Tomorrow is going to be a big day." After Sarah left, Clara helped her mother get comfortable in the luxurious bed. Elena fell asleep almost immediately, her breathing deeper and more peaceful than Clara had heard in months. Whether it was the medication, the comfortable surroundings, or simply hope finally returning, her mother looked more at peace than she had since the diagnosis. Clara settled into her own bed, grateful for sheets that were clean and soft instead of the rough hospital linens she'd grown accustomed to. Through her window, she could see the facility's gardens bathed in moonlight, and in the distance, the lights of what appeared to be other buildings on the property dot as she drifted off to sleep. Clara's last conscious thought was a mixture of gratitude and unease. They'd been given a miracle, but something about the whole situation felt orchestrated in a way that went beyond mere charity. Marcus Blackwood was clearly a man who planned several moves ahead, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she and her mother were pieces in a game whose rules they didn't fully understand. She would later realize that this was the last night. She would sleep peacefully for a very long time. Clara's dreams were vivid and strange images of glass corridors and men in expensive suits watching her from behind one-way mirrors. She dreamed of her mother dancing in a garden that stretched on forever, healthy and laughing like she used to before the cancer. But even in her dreams, there were shadows at the edges of her vision. Suggestions of watchers and hidden purposes that made her skin crawl, even in sleep. She woke with a start to find bright sunlight streaming through her windows and the sound of voices in the corridor outside. Her phone showed 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for nearly 12 hours, longer than she had since Elena's diagnosis. The tea had certainly been effective. Clara quickly dressed and checked on her mother, who was still sleeping peacefully. Elena's color looked better, and some of the tension seemed to have left her face. Whatever medication they'd given her was clearly more effective than what she'd been receiving at St. Mary's. A soft knock interrupted Clara's observations. Dr. Chun entered, followed by two other doctors. Clara hadn't met a tall, stern-looking man with silver hair and a younger woman with kind eyes and an efficient manner. "Good morning, Clara," Dr. Chun said. "I hope you both slept well. These are my colleagues, Dr. Richard Hartwell and Dr. Amanda Torres. We'll all be working together on your mother's treatment." Elena stirred at the sound of voices opening her eyes with more alertness than Clara had seen in weeks. "Good morning," she said, her voice stronger than it had been the night before. "I feel Brent better." "That's excellent," Dr. Chun said, making notes on a tablet. "The preparatory medications are designed to optimize your system for treatment. How's your pain level this morning?" "Much lower," Elena admitted, looking surprised. "I actually feel almost normal." Dr. Hartwell stepped forward, his expression serious. "Mrs. Reyes, we need to explain what your treatment will involve. The therapy we're using is unlike anything you've experienced before. It requires your complete cooperation and trust." "What exactly does that mean?" Clara asked, her protective instincts sharpening. Dr. Torres answered, her voice gentle but firm. "The treatment involves a combination of targeted cellular therapy, immunological enhancement, and neurological optimization. It's designed not just to attack cancer, but to fundamentally strengthen your mother's entire biological system." "Neurological optimization?" Clara repeated. "What does that involve?" The three doctors exchanged glances before Dr. Chun answered. "Part of the treatment involves enhancing the patient's neurological resilience to better cope with the physical stress of therapy. It's completely safe, but some patients experience temporary memory gaps or altered perceptions during the process." Elena frowned. "Memory gaps? What kind of memory gaps?" "Nothing permanent," Dr. Hartwell assured her quickly. "Some patients don't remember portions of their treatment period clearly. It's a side effect of the neurological optimization process, but it allows us to deliver much more intensive therapy than would otherwise be tolerable." Clara felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying my mother might not remember her treatment?" "She remember being here, remember the overall experience," Dr. Torres explained. "But the specific details of the treatment sessions may be unclear. Think of it like general anesthesia. You know you had surgery, but you don't remember the actual procedure." Elena looked between Clara and the doctors. "And this is necessary?" "For the treatment to be effective, yes," Dr. Chun said. "Mrs. Reyes, your cancer is very advanced. Conventional treatments have failed. What we're offering you is the difference between life and death, but it requires us to push your system to its absolute limits. The neurological optimization protects your mind from trauma that would otherwise be unbearable." Clara wanted to ask more questions, but Elena spoke first. "If this is what it takes to live, then that's what we'll do." "Excellent," Dr. Hartwell said. "We'll begin the first session this afternoon. Clara, you'll be able to stay nearby, but during the actual treatment sessions, only medical personnel are allowed in the treatment room." "How long will each session take?" Clara asked. "The initial sessions are quite lengthy, 8 to 12 hours each," Dr. Chun replied. "We have comfortable accommodations where you can rest during that time, 12 hours. Clara tried to imagine sitting alone for 12 hours while her mother underwent mysterious treatments that she might not even remember. But what choice did they have? The rest of the morning was spent on additional preparations. Elena underwent a series of tests that seemed far more comprehensive than anything she'd received at St. Mary's. Blood work, brain scans, genetic analysis. The doctors seemed to be mapping every aspect of her biological system with extraordinary precision. During lunch, which was served in a private dining room with food that rivaled high-end restaurants, Clara finally had a chance to talk privately with her mother. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Clara asked. "If you're having any doubts." Elena reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Clara, 3 days ago, I was dying. Today, I feel better than I have in months. Whatever they're doing here, it's already helping. I trust these doctors, and I trust your judgment in bringing us here. But the memory issues they mentioned, Mia, if I don't remember a few weeks of medical treatment, but I get to live to see you graduate college, get married, have children, that's a trade I'll make gladly." Clara nodded, though the unease in her stomach continued to grow. Everything the doctors had said made logical sense, but something about their manner, about the facility itself, felt carefully orchestrated in a way that went beyond medical necessity. At 2 p.m., Dr. Chun came to escort Elena to the treatment area. Clara was allowed to accompany them partway, through corridors lined with expensive artwork and into areas of the facility she hadn't seen before. The treatment wing was even more impressive than the patient rooms, all glass and steel with equipment that looked like it belonged in a space program rather than a hospital. "This is where we'll say goodbye for now," Dr. Chun said outside a room marked only with a number, 7. Through the glass walls, Clara could see a space that looked part operating room, part laboratory, with machines and monitors she couldn't begin to identify. Elena hugged her daughter tightly. "I'll see you when I wake up," she whispered. "Whatever happens in there, remember that I love you." "I love you too, Mom," Clara replied, fighting back tears. "I'll be right here waiting." As the doctors led Elena into the treatment room, Clara was escorted to a comfortable waiting area with plush furniture, magazines, and a view of the gardens. But as the hours passed, she found it impossible to concentrate on anything. Every sound from the corridor made her jump. Every glimpse of medical personnel made her wonder what was happening to her mother behind those glass walls. It was nearly midnight when Dr. Chun finally emerged from the treatment area, looking exhausted, but satisfied. Clara had dozed fitfully in her chair, jerking awake every time she heard footsteps. "How is she?" Clara asked immediately. "The session went very well," Dr. Chun replied. "Better than we hoped, actually. Your mother responded to the treatment exceptionally well. Can I see her?" "She's sleeping now and will likely sleep through the night. The treatment is physically demanding, and her body needs time to process what we've done. You should get some rest as well. Tomorrow we'll begin the second phase." Clara wanted to insist on seeing her mother, but Dr. Chun's manner brooked no argument. She was escorted back to her room, where she found another cup of the chamomile tea waiting on her knitstand. Despite her anxiety, she drank it gratefully, hoping it would help her sleep. But this time, the dreams that came were darker and more disturbing. She dreamed of her mother lying on a table surrounded by machines, of doctors in masks doing things Clara couldn't quite see. She dreamed of Marcus Blackwood watching from an observation window, his steel-gray eyes reflecting something that wasn't quite human kindness. Most disturbing of all, she dreamed of her mother's voice calling her name, but when Clara tried to follow the sound, she found herself in an endless maze of glass corridors, where every door led to another locked room. She woke with a gasp to find 3 doctors standing beside her bed, their faces backlit by the morning sun streaming through her windows. But these weren't the doctors she'd met before. These were strangers, and they were looking at her with an intensity that made her blood run cold. "Miss Reyes," one of them said in a voice that was professionally calm but somehow threatening, "we need to talk." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the three unfamiliar doctors standing beside her bed. The morning light streaming through the windows cast their faces in sharp relief, and none of them looked like the compassionate medical professionals she'd met the day before. These men wore identical dark suits under their white coats, and their eyes held a coldness that made Clara's skin crawl. "Who are you?" Clara managed, pulling the covers up to her chin as if they could protect her from whatever was about to happen. "Where are Dr. Chun and the others?" The tallest of the three men stepped forward, his smile never reaching his pale blue eyes. "I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, Miss Reyes. These are my colleagues, Dr. James Morrison and Dr. Paul Sterling. We're here to discuss your mother's progress and your situation." "My situation?" Clara swung her legs over the side of the bed, suddenly aware that she was wearing the same clothes she'd fallen asleep in. The chamomile tea had knocked her out so completely that she hadn't even changed. "What do you mean? And where's my mother?" "I want to see her right now." Dr. Morrison, a stocky man with thinning brown hair, consulted a tablet in his hands. "Mrs. Reyes is currently in post-treatment recovery. The procedures she underwent yesterday were more extensive than initially planned." "What does that mean?" Clara stood up, her protective instincts overriding her fear. "You said the treatment would take 8 to 12 hours. It's been nearly 18 hours since I saw her." "Complications arose," Dr. Sterling said curtly. He was younger than the other two, probably in his 30s, but his manner was just as cold and clinical. Nothing life-threatening, but adjustments to the protocol were necessary. Clara felt panic rising in her chest. "I want to see her, now, and I want to speak with Dr. Chun." Dr. Webb's smile widened, but it was the kind of expression a predator might wear before striking. "I'm afraid that won't be possible at the moment. Dr. Chun is attending to other matters. As for your mother, she's sedated and won't be conscious for several more hours." "Sedated? Why is she sedated?" "You said she'd just be sleeping naturally after the treatment." The three doctors exchanged glances that Clara didn't like at all. There was something rehearsed about their movements, as if they'd had this conversation before with other people in similar situations. "Miss Reyes," Dr. Webb said, moving closer to her bed, "perhaps you should sit down. There are some things we need to explain about your mother's condition and the treatment she's receiving." "I'll stand, thank you." Clara backed toward the window, her mind racing. Something was very wrong here. The doctors who had treated her and Elena with such kindness yesterday were nowhere to be seen, replaced by these cold, intimidating men who spoke in euphemisms and evasions. Dr. Morrison looked up from his tablet. "According to our records, you and your mother signed comprehensive consent forms yesterday. You agreed to participate in an experimental treatment program with full knowledge of the risks involved." "Yes, but those consent forms," Dr. Sterling interrupted, "included provisions for extended treatment periods and modified protocols based on patient response. Your mother's case required odd adjustments." Clara's blood ran cold. "What kind of adjustments?" Dr. Webb clasped his hands behind his back, his manner shifting to something that might have been pity if it weren't so calculating. "Miss Reyes, your mother's cancer was far more advanced than her previous doctors realized. The treatment required to save her life has been necessarily aggressive, more aggressive than we initially indicated. Stop talking in riddles and tell me what's happening." "To my mother. The treatment your mother is receiving involves experimental procedures that push the boundaries of current medical science," Dr. Morrison explained, his voice maddeningly calm. "Cellular regeneration, genetic modification, neurological enhancement techniques that aren't approved by traditional medical authorities." Clara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Genetic modification? Neurological enhancement? That's not what Dr. Chen told us. She said it was cellular therapy and immunological support. "Dr. Chun told you what you needed to hear to consent to the treatment," Dr. Sterling said bluntly. The full scope of the procedures would have been difficult for lay people to understand or accept. You lied to us. Clara's voice rose to nearly a shout. You lied to get us here, and now you're doing things to my mother that we never agreed to. Dr. Webb stepped closer, and Clara noticed for the first time that he was blocking her path to the door. Miss Reyes, your mother was dying. 3 days ago, she had perhaps 2 weeks left to live. Today, thanks to our intervention, she has a chance at not just survival, but enhancement far beyond normal human parameters. Enhancement? What the hell does that mean? It means, Dr. Morrison said, consulting his tablet again, that when your mother's treatment is complete, she won't just be cured of cancer, she'll be improved. Stronger, faster, more resistant to disease and aging. The procedures we're performing don't just heal, they optimize. Clara stared at the 3 men, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. You're talking about turning my mother into some kind of experiment, some kind of ... what? Superhuman? The term we prefer is enhanced human, Dr. Sterling corrected. And your mother isn't the only one who will benefit from these improvements. The way he said it made Clara's stomach drop. What do you mean? Dr. Webb's cold smile returned. Miss Reyes, did you really think Mr. Blackwood would invest millions of dollars in your mother's treatment out of simple charity? Did you think? A man doesn't become a billionaire by giving away free medical care to strangers who text him in the middle of the night. He said he lost someone to cancer. He said he wanted to help. Mr. Blackwood did lose someone to cancer, Dr. Morrison interrupted. His first wife, Catherine. She died 15 years ago, and it motivated him to invest heavily in medical research. But not the kind of research you might expect. Clara's hands were shaking now. What kind of research? Enhancement research, Dr. Sterling said. Mr. Blackwood discovered that traditional cancer treatments were limited by the human body's natural limitations. So he began funding research into transcending those limitations entirely. Dr. Webb moved even closer, now standing directly between Clara and the door. Your mother is part of a select group of test subjects who are helping us perfect the enhancement process. When we're finished, she'll be essentially immortal, immune to cancer, aging, most diseases, and physical trauma. And in exchange, Dr. Morrison added, she belonged to Mr. Blackwood. Clara felt like she was going to be sick. Belong to him? What does that mean? Enhanced humans require ongoing medical support and monitoring, Dr. Sterling explained matter-of-factly. They also develop certain dependencies on the treatment protocols. In practical terms, it means your mother will need to remain here indefinitely. You're talking about slavery, Clara whispered, the full horror of the situation beginning to dawn on her. You're turning my mother into your property. Dr. Webb's expression didn't change. We prefer to think of it as an exclusive relationship. Your mother will live forever, Miss Reyes. She never be sick again, never grow old, never die. That's worth a little exclusivity, don't you think? Clara lunged toward the door, but Dr. Morrison was faster than he looked. He caught her arm in a grip that was surprisingly strong, stopping her before she could reach the handle. I'm afraid you can't leave just yet, Dr. Webb said. You see, you've seen too much, learned too much about our operations here. Mr. Blackwood has very strict policies about protecting his investments. Let me go. Clara struggled against Dr. Morrison's grip, but he held her easily. You can't keep me here. People will look for me. What people? Dr. Sterling asked, consulting his tablet. According to our research, you have no other family. No close friends who would notice your absence for weeks or months. You told your employer at Murphy's Diner that you were taking indefinite leave to care for your mother. Who exactly do you think will be looking for you? The terrible truth of his words hit Clara like a physical blow. She'd been so desperate to save Elena that she'd cut herself off from everyone else in her life. No one would notice they were missing, because no one expected them to be anywhere else. This is insane, Clara said, still struggling against Dr. Morrison's grip. You can't just kidnap people and experiment on them. Someone will find out. Someone will stop you." Dr. Webb laughed, a sound completely devoid of warmth. "Miss Reyes, Mr. Blackwood owns this facility, the land it sits on, and most of the local government officials who might otherwise ask questions. He's been conducting these experiments for over 2 years now, and not a single enhanced subject has ever been reported missing." Enhanced subjects? How many people have you done this to? Your mother will be number 37, Dr. Sterling said. "The process has been refined considerably since the early subjects. The survival rate is now nearly 90%. And what happens to the 10% who don't survive?" The 3 doctors exchanged glances again, and Dr. Webb's smile finally faded. "Those subjects are cremated on site. Their families are told there were complications with the treatment, and they receive substantial financial compensation for their loss." Clara felt her knees go weak. These people were talking about murder as casually as they might discuss the weather. "You're monsters, all of you." "We're pioneers," Dr. Morrison corrected. "We're creating the future of human evolution. Your mother is fortunate to be part of that future. And you, Miss Reyes," Dr. Webb added, "will have the opportunity to join her." Clara's blood turned to ice. "What? Mr. Blackwood believes that enhanced subjects perform better when they have emotional connections to maintain their psychological stability," Dr. Sterling explained. "Family members are ideal candidates for companion enhancement. You want to experiment on me too? We want to offer you the same gift we're giving your mother," Dr. Webb said. "Immortality, perfect health, enhanced physical and mental capabilities. You'll never have to worry about money again, never have to work another day in your life unless you choose to. In exchange for being your prisoner forever. In exchange for being part of something greater than yourself," Dr. Morrison corrected. "Miss Reyes, you have no idea what Mr. Blackwood is building here. He's creating a new species, a better version of humanity that will survive long after the current human race has destroyed itself." Clara shook her head violently. "I won't do it. I won't let you turn me into one of your experiments." Dr. Sterling looked up from his tablet with an expression that might have been sympathy. "I'm afraid the choice isn't yours to make anymore. You signed the consent forms, and those forms included provisions for companion subjects when medically indicated. That's not what those forms said." "Perhaps you should have read them more carefully," Dr. Webb said. The legal language was quite clear to those who understood it. Clara realized with growing horror that they'd been planned from the beginning. The rushed timeline, the complex legal documents, the pressure to sign without careful review, it had all been designed to trap her and Elena in this nightmare. "When?" Clara asked quietly. "Your enhancement will begin this afternoon," Dr. Morrison replied. "We've learned that it's best to start companion subjects. While the primary subject is still in the early stages of their own enhancement, it helps with psychological bonding. I want to see my mother first." "That's not possible," Dr. Webb said. "Your mother is currently in a very delicate stage of her treatment. Seeing her in her current condition might be disturbing. What have you done to her?" Dr. Sterling hesitated before answering. The initial phases of enhancement involve significant physical and neurological changes. Your mother's appearance and cognitive function are temporarily altered while her system adapts to the modifications. Clara felt tears start to flow down her cheeks. "You've turned her into a monster." "We've turned her into something better than human," Dr. Morrison said firmly. "And we'll do the same for you." "No," Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "I won't let you." Dr. Webb sighed and nodded to his colleagues. Dr. Morrison tightened his grip on Clara's arm, while Dr. Sterling produced a syringe from his coat pocket. "I had hoped you would be more cooperative," Dr. Webb said. "The enhancement process is much more pleasant when the subject is willing." Clara tried to scream, but Dr. Morrison clamped his free hand over her mouth. She struggled desperately as Dr. Sterling approached with the syringe, but the three men were far stronger than she was. "This will just make you sleep," Dr. Sterling said as he found a vein in her arm. "When you wake up, you'll be in the enhancement chamber, and the process will begin." Clara felt the needle pierce her skin and the cold liquid enter her bloodstream. Almost immediately, her vision began to blur and her struggles grew weaker. "Don't fight it," Dr. Webb said, his voice seeming to come from very far away. "Soon you'll understand that this is the greatest gift anyone has ever given you." As consciousness faded, Clara's last thought was of Elena, somewhere in this facility, undergoing horrors that Clara couldn't even imagine. She'd wanted to save her mother's life, but instead, she delivered them both into the hands of madmen, who saw them as nothing more than raw material for their twisted experiments. The last thing she heard before the darkness claimed her was Dr. Morrison speaking into a phone. "Mr. Blackwood?" "Yes, sir. Subject 38 is ready for preparation. We'll begin the companion enhancement protocol within the hour." When Clara's eyes finally fluttered closed, Dr. Webb checked his watch and made a note on his own tablet. "Excellent timing," he said to his colleagues. "Mr. Blackwood will be pleased. He has a particular interest in watching the companion enhancements personally." Dr. Sterling capped his syringe and returned it to his pocket. "Should we move her to the preparation room now?" "Not yet," Dr. Webb replied. "Let the sedative take full effect first. We don't want her waking up during the preliminary procedures. That tends to cause psychological trauma that interferes with the enhancement process." Dr. Morrison released Clara's unconscious form, allowing her to slump back onto the bed. "What about her mother? Is she ready for the next phase?" "Mrs. Reyes is progressing beautifully," Dr. Webb said, consulting his tablet. "The cellular modifications have taken hold, and her neurological mapping is nearly complete. She should be ready for consciousness restoration by tomorrow evening." "And she won't remember the daughter?" Dr. Sterling asked. "The memory editing is quite precise," Dr. Webb assured him. "She remember having a daughter, but not the specific details. When she meets the enhanced version of Clara, she accepts her as family without question. The emotional bonds will reformulate naturally." Dr. Morrison nodded approvingly. "Mr. Blackwood's psychological engineering continues to impress. Creating family units among the enhanced subjects has dramatically improved their long-term stability." "Indeed," Dr. Webb agreed. "Isolated subjects tend to develop depression and resistance behaviors, but subjects with enhanced family members adapt much more readily to their new circumstances." Dr. Sterling was already preparing Clara for transport, checking her pulse and pupil dilation to ensure the sedative was working properly. "Vitals are stable. She'll be unconscious for approximately 6 hours, plenty of time for the full preparation sequence." "Excellent. Have her moved to Enhancement Suite 7, Dr. Webb instructed. "I'll inform Mr. Blackwood that we're ready to begin. He specifically requested to observe this one personally." As the three doctors prepared to move Clara's unconscious form, Dr. Morrison paused. "Doctor, what was different about this case? Why is Mr. Blackwood taking such a personal interest?" Dr. Webb smiled coldly. "This girl contacted him directly, bypassing all our usual recruitment protocols. Mr. Blackwood finds that kind of initiative intriguing. He believes subjects who show exceptional determination might be candidates for his special projects." "What kind of special projects?" "Let's just say that not all enhanced subjects are destined for simple immortality," Dr. Webb replied cryptically. "Some are intended for much more active roles in Mr. Blackwood's plans for the future." With that ominous statement hanging in the air, the three doctors carefully lifted Clara's unconscious body and carried her out of the room that had been her last taste of freedom. Behind them, the morning sun continued to stream through the windows, illuminating empty space where a desperate young woman had made her last stand against a fate she was powerless to prevent. In Enhancement Suite 7, Machines hummed to life as technicians prepared for another transformation. Soon, Clara Reyes would cease to exist as she had been, and something new, something that belongs entirely to Marcus Blackwood, would take her place. The greatest tragedy was that when she finally woke up, she would thank him for it. Clara's consciousness returned slowly, like swimming up through thick honey toward a distant light. Her first sensation was of incredible comfort. She was lying on something softer than any bed she'd ever experienced, surrounded by warmth and the faint scent of lavender. For a moment, she felt perfectly at peace, as if she'd awakened from the most restful sleep of her life. Then the memories crashed over her like a tidal wave. Her eyes snapped open to find herself in a room that looked like a luxury hotel suite crossed with a high-tech medical facility. The walls were painted in soothing cream tones, with artwork that seemed to shift and shimmer when she wasn't looking directly at it. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a view of manicured gardens bathed in what appeared to be perpetual golden hour lighting, though Clara couldn't tell if it was dawn or dusk. "Welcome back, Miss Reyes." Clara turned toward the voice and felt her heart skip a beat. 3 doctors stood at the foot of her bed, but these weren't the cold, threatening men who had captured her. These doctors looked almost ethereal. Their features were perfectly symmetrical, their eyes held an otherworldly brightness, and they moved with a fluid grace that seemed barely human. "Who are you?" Clara whispered, though something deep in her mind already knew the answer. The tallest of the 3, a woman with silver hair that seemed to glow with its own light, stepped forward with a smile that was both beautiful and terrifying. "I'm Dr. Catherine Blackwood, Clara. These are my colleagues, Dr. Michael Harrison and Dr. Lisa Chun. We've been waiting for you to wake up." Clara tried to sit up and gasped. Her body felt different, not weak or disoriented as she'd expected, but impossibly strong and coordinated. Every movement was fluid and precise, as if she'd suddenly become a professional dancer. When she looked down at her hands, the skin seemed to have a subtle luminescence, and she could see the intricate network of blood vessels beneath the surface with startling clarity. "What have you done to me?" Clara's voice came out clearer and more melodious than she remembered, each word perfectly articulated. Dr. Harrison, whose dark eyes seemed to hold depths that went on forever, consulted a tablet that appeared to be made of living light. The enhancement process was remarkably successful. "Clara, your body has adapted to the modifications better than we dared hope." "Modifications?" Clara swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The movement was effortless, and she realized she felt no fatigue whatsoever. In fact, she felt like she could run a marathon or lift a car. "What kind of modifications?" Dr. Chun, whose features were so perfectly beautiful they seemed computer-generated, gestured toward a full-length mirror that materialized from what had appeared to be a blank wall. "Perhaps it would be easier to show you." Clara approached the mirror cautiously and stopped in shock. The person looking back at her was recognizably Clara Reyes, but perfected beyond human possibility. Her skin was flawless and seemed to emit a soft glow. Her hair was lustrous and perfectly styled, despite having just woken up. Her eyes were the same brown color, but held a depth and intelligence that made her previous self seem dim by comparison. Even her posture was different, confident and graceful in a way she'd never managed before. "This isn't real," Clara breathed, touching her reflection. "This isn't me." "It's more you than you've ever been," Dr. Blackwood said gently. "We've simply optimized what was already there, enhanced your natural beauty, intelligence, and physical capabilities to their theoretical maximum." Clara spun around to face the 3 doctors, and the movement was so fluid it was almost like floating. "You've turned me into some kind of android. Some kind of artificial person." "Not artificial," Dr. Harrison corrected. "Enhanced. You're still completely human, Clara. Just a better version of humanity than has ever existed before. I want to see my mother, right now." The 3 doctors exchanged glances, and Clara noticed that their communication seemed to happen on a level beyond words. It was as if they were sharing thoughts directly. "Your mother is here," Dr. Chun said finally. "She's been asking for you." "Where?" "Take me to her." "Of course," Dr. Blackwood said. "But first, there are some things you need to understand about your new condition." Clara felt a flash of impatience, but it was quickly dampened by a strange sense of calm that seemed to come from nowhere. "What things?" "The enhancements you've received come with certain requirements," Dr. Harrison explained. "Your body now operates on a different biological system than regular humans. You'll need specific nutrients and treatments to maintain your enhanced state." "What kind of treatments?" Dr. Chun gestured toward a panel in the wall that opened to reveal an array of medical equipment. "Daily injections of specialized compounds that support your enhanced metabolism. Without them, your system would begin to break down within 72 hours. Clara felt a chill run through her perfect new body. "You've made me dependent on you." "We've made you perfect," Dr. Blackwood corrected. "The maintenance requirements are a small price to pay for immortality." "Immortality?" "You won't age, Clara." Dr. Harrison said, "You won't get sick. You won't die unless you're deprived of the maintenance treatments. In practical terms, you could live forever." Clara tried to feel outraged, tried to summon the terror and anger she knew she should be experiencing. But instead, she felt only a strange acceptance, as if these revelations were simply facts to be processed rather than horrors to be fought. "What else did you do to me?" she asked. Dr. Chun smiled. "We've optimized your neurological responses to reduce unnecessary emotional distress. You'll find that anxiety, depression, and other negative emotional states are much less likely to affect you now. You've lobotomized me. We've freed you," Dr. Blackwood said firmly, "from the emotional chaos that plagues normal humans. You can think more clearly now, make better decisions, find contentment in circumstances that would have devastated your previous self." Clara processed this information with the same strange calm. Intellectually, she understood that she should be screaming, fighting, demanding to be changed back. But those impulses felt distant and irrational, like outdated programming from a less evolved version of herself. "I want to see my mother," she said again. "Of course. Follow us." The three doctors led Clara out of her suite and through corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves as they walked. The facility was even more extraordinary than she remembered: walls that shifted between transparency and opacity, floors that felt like walking on clouds, and air that tasted faintly of ozone. And possibility. They stopped outside a door marked with Elena's name, and Dr. Blackwood placed her hand on Clara's shoulder. "Your mother has been enhanced as well, but her modifications were more extensive due to the cancer. She may seem different at first." Clara nodded, surprised to find that she felt no anxiety about this warning. The door opened, and she stepped inside to find her mother sitting by the window, looking out at the gardens. Elena Reyes had been transformed just as dramatically as Clara. Her hair, which had been thin and gray from chemotherapy, was now thick and lustrous black. Her skin glowed with health, and when she turned toward Clara, her eyes held the same otherworldly depth that Clara had seen in her own reflection. "Clara Mia," Elena said, rising with the same fluid grace that Clara had experienced. "You look beautiful." Clara embraced her mother, noting that Elena felt warm and solid and real, despite her transformed appearance. "How do you feel, Mom?" "Better than I have in years," Elena replied. "The doctors tell me the cancer is completely gone. More than gone, they say I'll never be sick again." "Do you remember what happened? How did we get here?" Elena's brow furrowed slightly. "I remember being in the hospital. I remember you finding help for me. After that, things are unclear, but it doesn't matter now. We're together, and we're both healthy." Clara studied her mother's face, looking for signs of the woman who had raised her. Elena's personality seemed intact, But there was something different about her manner, the same calm acceptance that Clara was feeling, the same reduction in emotional intensity. "Mrs. Reyes has adapted beautifully to her enhancements," Dr. Chun said from the doorway. "The cancer required us to completely rebuild her cellular structure, but the process was entirely successful." "What happens now?" Clara asked. Dr. Harrison stepped forward. "Now you begin your new lives as enhanced humans. You'll live here at Westfield, contributing to our research and enjoying amenities that most people can only dream of. And if we want to leave?" "Why would you want to leave?" Dr. Blackwood asked genuinely. "You have everything you could possibly need here. Safety, comfort, immortality, and each other." Clara looked around the luxurious room, then at her transformed mother, then at the three perfect doctors. Logically, she knew she should be planning escape, should be fighting against this imprisonment. But the emotional drive to resist seemed to have been surgically removed along with her other unnecessary responses. "How many others are there?" Clara asked. "Instead, 36 other enhanced individuals live here currently," Dr. Chun replied. "You'll meet them soon. Many of them have formed close friendships and even romantic relationships. It's a very close-knit community." "What do you do all day?" Dr. Harrison smiled. "Whatever brings you fulfillment. We have extensive libraries, art studios, recreational facilities, and research laboratories. Many of our residents pursue advanced degrees or conduct their own experiments. Time has a different meaning when you have eternity." Elena took Clara's hand. "It sounds wonderful, doesn't it, Mia? A chance to learn and grow without ever having to worry about money or getting old or getting sick." Clara squeezed her mother's hand and found that she agreed. Without the constant anxiety and fear that had driven her previous existence, this new life did seem appealing. She would miss some things about her old life, but she couldn't quite remember what they were or why they had seemed important. "There is one more thing," Dr. Blackwood said. "Mr. Blackwood would like to meet with you both this evening. He takes a personal interest in all of our residents, and he's particularly interested in meeting the young woman who was brave enough to contact him directly." "Will we be able to ask him questions?" Clara asked. "Of course. He's very proud of what he's accomplished here and enjoys sharing his vision for the future of humanity." As they left Elena's room, Clara found herself looking forward to meeting the man who had orchestrated her transformation. The old Clara would have wanted to confront him, to demand answers and fight for freedom. But this new Clara was simply curious about his motivations and grateful for the gift he'd given her and her mother. The realization that she was grateful should have terrified her. Instead, it simply felt like the natural response of a more evolved being who could recognize beneficial circumstances when she encountered them. Walking through the magnificent corridors of Westfield toward her new eternal life, Clara Reyes felt truly content for the first time she could remember. Behind her, the desperate girl who had texted a billionaire at 3 a.m. felt like a character from someone else's story, a primitive creature driven by emotions and fears that no longer seemed relevant. She was enhanced now. She was perfect. And soon, she would understand exactly what Marcus Blackwood expected from his perfect creations. The dining hall where Clara and Elena were escorted that evening defied every expectation of institutional dining. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables set with fine china and fresh flowers. Enhanced humans of various ages moved through the space with the same fluid grace Clara had noticed in herself, their conversations creating a pleasant murmur of intellectual discourse. Marcus Blackwood sat at the head table, and Clara was struck by how different he seemed from their first meeting. Where before he had appeared as a powerful but distant businessman, now he radiated an almost paternal warmth. His steel-gray eyes followed Clara and Elena as they approached, and his smile seemed genuinely pleased. "Clara, Elena," he said, rising to greet them, "you both look absolutely radiant." The enhancement process has exceeded even my expectations. Up close, Clara noticed subtle signs that Blackwood himself had undergone enhancement. His skin had the same luminous quality, his movements, the same inhuman precision. This wasn't a man conducting experiments on others. This was someone who had first experimented on himself. "Mr. Blackwood," Clara said, her voice carrying none of the anger she vaguely remembered feeling toward him. "Thank you for saving my mother's life." "Thank you for saving both our lives," Elena added. Blackwood's smile widened. "Please sit. I'm eager to hear your thoughts about your new existence." As they dined on food that somehow tasted perfect in ways Clara couldn't describe, Blackwood explained his vision. He spoke of humanity's limitations, disease, aging, emotional instability, cognitive constraints. He described a future where enhanced humans would guide the species beyond these primitive restrictions. "You see," Blackwood said, gesturing toward the other diners, "we're not just improving individual lives. We're evolving the human race itself. Every person here represents a step toward our species' true potential." Clara found his words compelling, his logic unassailable. "How did you discover the enhancement process?" "Trial and error over many years," Blackwood admitted. "I lost my first wife, Catherine, to cancer, as I mentioned. But I also lost my daughter, Sarah, to a drunk driver, my brother Thomas to a heart attack, and my parents to old age. Each loss taught me that humanity's biological limitations were the true enemy." Elena leaned forward, her enhanced features showing genuine sympathy. "So, you dedicated your life to conquering those limitations." "Exactly. And now, with subjects like yourselves, we're ready for the next phase." Clara tilted her head. "Next phase?" Blackwood's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Integration with the outside world. You and Elena will be among our first ambassadors enhanced. Humans who will gradually introduce this technology to select individuals in positions of power and influence." "We're going back into the world?" Elena asked. "Eventually. With new identities, unlimited resources, and a mission to identify and recruit the most promising candidates for enhancement. Politicians, scientists, business leaders, people who can help us transform society from within." Clara processed this information with her enhanced cognition, seeing the elegant simplicity of the plan. "You're creating a secret enhanced class that will gradually assume control of human civilization. I prefer to think of it as guided evolution," Blackwood said. "Regular humans will benefit tremendously from enhanced leadership. Wars will end, diseases will be eliminated, poverty will become obsolete. We're not conquering humanity, we're saving it from itself." As the evening progressed, Clara met other enhanced residents. Dr. Patricia Wells, who had been a struggling medical student before her enhancement, now conducted breakthrough research into consciousness transfer. James Mitchell, formerly a homeless veteran, had become a brilliant strategic analyst. Sarah Kim, who had been dying of ALS, now designed the neural interfaces that made enhancement possible. Each person shared the same story: desperate circumstances leading to enhancement, followed by profound gratitude and purpose. Clara began to understand that she and Elena weren't victims, but rather the latest members of an exclusive family united by their transformation. "There's something I need to tell you both," Blackwood said as the evening wound down. "The enhancement process includes one final gift that won't manifest for several more days." "What gift?" Elena asked. "Enhanced reproduction. When enhanced humans have children together, the offspring are born naturally enhanced, with capabilities that exceed even their parents. You're both young enough to contribute to the next generation of humanity." Clara felt a warm surge of possibility. She could imagine raising enhanced children in this perfect environment, watching them grow into beings of unlimited potential. "Mr. Blackwood," Clara said as they prepared to leave, "I want you to know how grateful I am. When I sent you that text message, I was just a desperate girl trying to save her dying mother. I had no idea you were offering us immortality." Blackwood's smile was radiant. "Clara, that desperate girl you used to be showed exactly the kind of determination and love that I look for in enhancement candidates. Your willingness to reach out to a stranger, to take extraordinary risks for family, those qualities will serve you well in your new role." Alina took Clara's hand. "We're not the same people who walked into that hospital, are we?" "No," Clara agreed. "We're better. We're what humanity is meant to become." As they walked back to their quarters through Westfield's beautiful corridors, Clara felt nothing but anticipation for the future. She would spend the coming weeks learning her new role as an ambassador for enhancement. She would identify worthy candidates among the regular humans still trapped in their biological limitations. And someday, she might even have enhanced children who would carry this gift into the future. The frightened girl who had texted a billionaire at 3 a.m. was gone. Forever, replaced by something infinitely more capable and content. Clara Reyes had been saved in ways she never could have imagined when she'd sent that desperate message. She was enhanced. She was immortal. She was grateful, and somewhere in the deepest recesses of her transformed mind, a tiny voice that sounded like her old self whispered that this was exactly what Marcus Blackwood had planned all along. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.